Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with part 2 of the merging of the Simon Says March 2018 card kit and the Hero Arts February 2018 card kit. Yes, I had to spit that out. So for card number 6, I'm using one of the stickers from the Simon Says side, and I'm just putting this down onto a piece of black cardstock. And I'm going to trim around the edge just so it can have a slight border, so the sticker itself can be framed. This piece here is a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper. And from the Simon Says kit, there was a stamp in there. There was 2 sets of stamps, if you remember. And one of them has like this plaid print. So I'm actually using that. Now, unfortunately, through this part, you just won't be able to see it. I'm using clear embossing powder and my Versamark ink. And what I want to do is just stamp this along the bottom. And if you think you can't see this, I couldn't either. It was very difficult. But I kept on going down and just prayed that it was straight. So, and in case I didn't say, it was Recollections Clear Embossing Powder. So I'm going to heat set that. And then I'm pulling in the Daniel Smith samples that we've gotten. One from the February kit, and then this recent one. I've been hoarding them, and I'm like, I need to use them. So I pulled out my Ranger brushes, and I'm putting down a layer of water over the area that I just embossed. And I'm going to be using a aqua brush because it does have a fine tip, and I just want to drop the color in. I could have used the other one, but there were some fine details that I was going to do as well. So I figured, okay, we're just going to switch over to this. Now you can see I have some water. I put some water down doing a wet in wet technique where I'm just dropping the color, and the water is going to help it move. It's going to move within it. So I have something like these just squiggles at the top, and now I'm just using the paint to splatter up along the top as well. I'm pulling in this sample set. Now this came from the February kit for Simon Says, and this blue, I just have to get this blue. It's gorgeous. There's like 2 tones in there, green and blue. I just have to have this. So eventually I will own that one. Then I'm splattering, but I just drew lines along the top because to me this resembled a fence. And that's kind of what I was going for with it. So now I'm just adding it in certain areas. And again, I'm letting the colors and the water do the work. In some areas where I wanted to have that blue shade, yes, I was putting it there, but I wasn't making it move. Just, that's the beauty of watercolors for me. Now this is a smaller piece of Canson XL watercolor paper. And now I'm going to use one of the golden colors from the sample set. And I'm just going to put that down. And it looks a little darker on the card, but I'm keeping it light. So I did put water down and I'm just dropping it in, but I'm making sure it's not a heavy coating of the color. Then I'm using the more warm shade of red. And I'm putting that in the top left, and I'm going to place that in the bottom right. Again, letting the colors move, but wanting to make sure that I had the differences here. Because you can see these 2 dyes that we're using, I want that color to sit in the wings. So just through doing this type of watercolor, I was able to get the colors in certain areas of my dyes. I pulled out my favorite things. Wonky stitch die. You knew that was going to make an appearance, of course. And I cut this panel down. Now that panel actually measures 5 1/4 by 4 inches. So even if you don't have a die, you can cut your piece down to that. I'm going to prop the Hello Spring. I'm going to use that as my sentiment with double-sided foam tape. And I'm just going to put some double-sided foam squares behind the one bird because it's going to come off the sentiment. So just to make sure that it's even, we're going to place that down on the right hand side using both the glue and the foam squares. And then the other bird's going to be in the left-hand side of the page, and we're just going to glue that straight down. And I'm okay that the wing is actually lifted just a little bit off of the page. I'm going to glue this panel down. This is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base. Of course, it's to the side folding. This is one of the cards that came from the kit, from the Simon Says kit, so I figured why not? Let's use them. So they were pre-made. If you want to have one of these card bases, you just want to make sure that you cut it 4 1/4, by 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, and then fold it in half. I pulled out my black glaze jelly roll to put eyes onto the birds, and that's card number 6. For card number 7, I took care of doing the coloring first, just to save some time. I did use my Prismacolors and my Blick Arc alcohol markers for this, and the carrots and the little bunny here. He's so cute. And the leaves come from the Simon Says stamp kit. Now, I'm pointing out this paper. I'm trying out this paper. I get it from the paper mill, and it helps if I have it right. And it's called Mohawk, and it's 110, and it's smooth, and it's white, 250 seats. You can see how thick that ream is. Let me tell you what, I used this paper to do the Copic coloring, and I absolutely loved it. It is, I'm still testing it out before I give any more information, but it is very reasonable. So I'm still playing with it. It is excellent for card bases. That I do know. So I'm just putting, okay, back to our video. So I'm using a very pale gray and my colorless blender just to ground the items. So I'm just using a little bit of gray for the tint. I'm going to prop my cute little bunny up with some foam tape, and I'm going to set him to the right. And then, of course, we have to add a little fuzzy cottontail. So we are breaking into the pom-poms. And then we're going to adhere that. I did use my art glitter glue, and wow, does that, like, it works very well for those two things to come together. The branch that I have here, I used the wood grain paper from the Hero Arts, the dark brown, obviously, and I used the die from the Hero Arts side. So I want this to come in from the right and just bend down a little bit to the left-hand side. The sentiment I'm using says, "You make me happy." And that does come from the Simon Says side as well. I'm using my VersaFine black onyx ink so that it will be set there, and I put that up in the upper right-hand corner. These leaves, I pulled those from Simon Says side, and I used, again, my Prismacolors and or my Blick alcohol markers to color these. And I'm just placing them. I wanted to fill up the branch. I like the branch the way it is here, and you can have a lot of fun coloring it and putting those colors onto the branch. But I wanted to add some dimension, so I figured, all right, I'm going to use these leaves, pull them in. But it looks, I only did 4, which is odd because usually I use an odd number. So you're going to see me, I'm going to make more of those, and I'll actually show you that coloring in a moment. I did 3 of the carrots, and I'm just going to set them down on the ground in front of Mr. Bunny here. And just adhering those with my art glitter glue. I'm using Simon Says Intense Black because it is Copic friendly, and plus I couldn't find my memento. Yeah, things get lost on the table. So I'm actually using 2 of the Blick Studio markers. I'm really liking these, and I'm finding these do work very well with my Prismacolor set that I have. So they are very much interchangeable. And I'm so glad, as you can see, that they have the colors on the cap so that I didn't put the wrong cap on the wrong color. And I'm just going to fussy cut these out real quick. So now we're going to fill up the branch with the balance of these leaves. And this last one, I finally decide to prop up with some foam squares. always change my mind. It's never the same thing. So we'll get that in place, and then that is pretty much our panel. We will actually set the panel using glue right onto a Desert Storm 4 1/4, 5 1/2 top folding card base. And that's pretty much card number 7. For card number 8, kind of went in so many different directions with this. So you can see I pushed the one stamp away. So I pulled out my Gina K inks. I'm using Apple Mint, Ocean Spray, I believe, and Charcoal Brown. But first I'm going to use my VersaFine Black Onyx, and I'm going to stamp one of the birds from the Hero Art side. I'm going to use my clear embossing powder just to give it some texture and some dimension for the little birdie. And of course, that bird is singing. So I had to pull in some of the sentiments from the Hero Art side. So this card actually is all Hero Arts. So I was going to use the brown for my sentiment. Figured no. So I pulled back my VersaFine Black Onyx, and that says chirping you along. And then I also pulled in the sentiment tweet and the little music notes. So I'm going to do tweet and the music notes out of each of the Gina K colors. So the little bird is singing because it says chirping you on. So I figured, all right, let's make them chirp and tweet. So I'm just going to stamp them going up the card. So you have the 3 different colors at least. You know, you have the green and the blue and the brown, and then you have the black that makes them stand up. Or, excuse me, stand out. Nothing stands up. I then decided to use my Lawn Fawn Stitch Rectangle, and not the normal size. It's kind of one of the smaller sizes. And that panel actually measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/2 if you're looking to cut your panel. I pulled in 3 of my Nuvo drops. These are the gloss. I pulled in the Green Apple, Caribbean, I think it's blue. I was going to use the black, changed my mind like I always do, and I pulled in my Dark Walnut. I figured I would match the dots to what the birdie was singing. And then just putting those all around the card. Very simple, very quick, but I do think it's really cute. I was in a whimsical state, I think. But there was no merging on this card. That is a 4 1/4, 5 1/2 top folding card base as well. So for card number 9, I'm using one of the preset card bases from Simon. Again, 4 1/4, 5 1/2 side folding. And I'm going to be using, this is a piece of Nina Solar White, and I'm pulling very gingerly. I almost ripped that right in half when I pulled it off. The Hello stamp from the Simon Says stamp set that we were given in the kit. So I set that down in the bottom left. I had to figure out how I was going to use these little wreaths that Hero Arts gave us. And of course, I always try to use the ribbon that comes to wrap around the kit. So I just cut a piece of the ribbon, and I'm going to real quick grab my tweezers to hold that in place. I pulled out my jute, my natural jute, and I'm going to tie a bow around, just above the wreath, around the ribbon. So I did edit this out because it was very painful. Y'all just did not need to watch that process. So we will amazingly have a bow that sits on top of that in no time. I'm then going to take one of the other stamps. This is the larger of the circle. I'm going to put glue around the outer edge, and I want to put the wreath on top of that just to set that in place. I'm then going to grab a glue dot and just put it on the back of the ribbon that's coming around the wreath, just so that it'll stay in place. I think I was going to let this go free. Again, it's interactive. It would have been movement on the card, but I just think it would have caused some problems with the panel being adhered to the card base. So I figured, okay, let's make that permanent, but at least you have a lot of that texture that's coming off. I put a piece of double-sided tape on the back so that when I push the ribbon over, it has something to adhere to. And I'm going to use my very wide double-sided tape. This is 1 inch wide, and I get this from Joann's. They're actually building up a card section in my local Joann's that's right literally down the street from me. So I do purchase it there. I'm going to adhere that to the card base. And again, this is a 4 1/4, 5 1/2. It's still a top folding card, but technically it does go to the side. It's not in my normal top folding. I'm just trimming off the edges of the jute twine. And that is card number 9. So for card number 10, I pulled in some Distress inks, and that's warm lipstick. And this piece here, I was going to immediately cut out those 2 birds. And again, they're from the Hero Art side. But I took this is actually a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper. I covered it in Versamark ink, and now I'm using a clear embossing powder from Recollections. And I heat set that. I'm going to set that aside to make sure that it's dry. I'm going to do very horrible ink blending here. I say horrible because it's okay that it's horrible. I wanted to get a section of the ink down. I was not looking for this to be perfectly blended. This is also a Canson XL watercolor paper that I'm working on. I'm then going to put lots of water on this. And I want it to move. I want it to flow. I want it to go all over the place. So I'm kind of combining. You can see that it's just doing all kinds of different things, but yet I still do have the blending, and that was me dropping my heat gun, by the way. Sorry about that. But I still have the blended look behind it, but yet it looks like a watercolor. So I wanted both textures to be on that page. I die cut from the clear embossing that I did on the other page, the 2 birds. So they have a rough texture to them, and they're shiny. But I just used some vintage photo to go around them, just so that it could give them, so that they weren't screaming at us off the page. I used my Favorite Things wonky stitch die to cut out this panel. And I pulled in one of the stickers from the sticker set, and it just says Holland Bulbs, number 1495. I'm then going to position my birds. I'm making that a shelf so that they're going to be perched on top of that. So the feet will be down onto that ledge, and then I used foam squares to prop them up above them so that they stayed even. I pulled another sticker in, and it just simply says Smiles. And I adhered that to the base. It's really a crate. I'm using it as a shelf. And then I'm just filling in with some of the floral stickers that came. So the main one, I have that down onto the card panel flat. And then these small ones that I'm using, I'm actually propping them up to give that some dimension as well. So I have one in the upper right-hand corner of that floral, and I have one down onto the bottom left. I'm going to glue this panel, and of course you're going to watch that my tape runner dies. Time to order another one. So we started with glue, changed our minds, tape runner, we're now back to the glue. We're going to adhere this down onto the 4 1/4, 5 1/2 top folding, which is now a side folding card base. And that's card number 10. I have to admit, this was a challenge for me. You would think you would have more options and all of that, but you know, sometimes it's just not there. So for the two of you, you know who you are, who made this suggestion. I thank you very much. I like a challenge. I appreciate that. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you do, please hit that thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. If you have any comments or if you have a question, please leave that down below. And of course, as always, all the supplies that I use will also be listed below. Please, if I forget something, just call me out on it and I'll get that link to you as soon as I can. I hope everyone had a great weekend and we're getting ready to start our new week. I've already determined what our next technique video series will be about, so stay tuned for that. That'll be coming soon. And remember, everyone, no matter what, always be creative.